It's a beautiful day in sunny St. George, and I'm in my Jesus riding a dinosaur shirt. Not to disrespect. That's not what that's about. That's a way of me taking a more lighthearted approach to spiritual things and religious things. And I'll tell you why that is. I want to share something personal with you guys, just because I know there's people out there that have experienced the same. So, with that in mind, I'm going to sit in my cute little swing over here. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so 11:34. I went on a mission, a Mormon mission. If you've ever seen those Mormon missionaries riding their bikes around, I went on a mission when I was 19 years old. I went on a 2-year mission to Virginia. Now, what was interesting was I actually went on this mission, and I went by my religious standards, I went unworthily. So what that means is that you have to go through worthiness interviews before you go. And at the time, I had gone through a year-long repentance process, okay? It was a year long. What that looks like is I couldn't take the sacrament publicly. I had to read all these books that the local, I guess you'd call it, he's a bishop, but I guess, most people would refer to him like a local minister. He recommended all these books I had to read and all these scriptures I had to read. And then I had to wait, of course. I had to wait a year. Most guys, they could just go when they want to go, but my repentance process was a full year. And it was because I had had sex with my girlfriend at the time. So with all of that said, I waited the year, and then right before I was about to disembark on this mission, which, men in the church they're expected to go on these missions, these 2-year missions. In fact, it says every worthy male should prepare and serve a mission. It's like this, they dictate that everyone should go, which is fine. But the problem that I had was I was put in a very peculiar dilemma, because what had happened was right before I was getting ready to go, I was just trying to stay out of trouble and be a good boy. And, I had done things that teens do. I had drunk a little alcohol on a handful of occasions. And then obviously I had fooled around with my girlfriend. But I was trying to stay out of trouble, so I was just staying home alone all the time leading up to that mission. I had kind of separated myself from all of my friends because I thought, they're just going to get me into trouble, or I'm going to get in trouble because, we'll be out having fun. And so I was lonely, and I got together with my girlfriend once. And it was right before I was about to leave, and, it was just this thing where I just slipped up one more time. And then I went on that, what happened was I went on the mission, and I lied. I had another worthiness interview, and they asked me if I had, done anything immoral, as they call it, unchaste. And I had, but I lied. And I lied because I thought to myself, I'd spent a whole year preparing for that, and I just felt like I'm letting everyone down. I'll be an embarrassment to my parents, an embarrassment to my family. I will. You see, when you go on these missions, all these people that are in your local ward, like your church chapter, they all want to support you, and they're all cheering you on, and they give you money. And so I think I had collected from people, it was something like $800 I think they gave me. And to me, that I felt like that was a lot of money at the time. A 19-year-old kid, people gave you, 25 bucks, 50 bucks, and it added up to like $800. And I remember feeling like I took that money. They gave me the money to support me in doing that. and I felt obligated to go. I felt like, and what's interesting is I wasn't the kind of person that lies. Like I don't like to lie, and I never like to lie. In fact, when I went in for a worthiness interview at 17 years old, and that local leader, the bishop, had asked me, have you ever broken the law of chastity? I flat out said yes. And I told him everything. And, you know, that's kind of where everything started to unfold for me. Because up until that point, I just never really contemplated, was I doing anything wrong? Was I doing anything wrong? Was I out of alignment with my maker, so to speak? So I go on this mission, and I'm away from my family for the first time in 2 years. And I'm only going to get to call and talk to my family on Mother's Day and Christmas for 2 years. So 2 times per year, about every 6 months, for 2 years. And I was very close to my family. It was very traumatic for me to leave and go and all the way to Virginia and not be able to speak with my family for two consecutive years, which I did. But I did so unworthily, was the thing. And as a result of that, I was living with a tremendous amount of guilt for my dishonesty. I was suffering big time. And what was interesting is every time, it seemed as though every time I would look at the clock would say 11:34. And then I would reverse 11:34 and kind of turn it upside down. And well, actually, you turn it upside down, reverse it, and it's hell. And it's the weirdest thing because, like, nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever said, oh, look, if you reverse 11:34, you'll see hell. I just connected those dots in my brain. And I started to believe that I was going to go to hell. I really believed that. Because here I was out there as, one of the Christ ambassadors, one of Christ's missionaries out there. And here I am, doing this work, and I'm an absolute hypocrite. That I had lied, and I wasn't worthy to be out there. I didn't deserve it. And I was not worthy of the Spirit or guidance. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Next to exposing my sexual abuser, but it was probably the second hardest thing I ever did in my life. Was every day out there feeling like I'm going to hell. And I remember, and some of you might not connect with that. I don't know if some of you are very religious, but I'm a very logical thinker. I'm a very pragmatic person by nature. I used to be very black and white. And now I've gotten a little bit less binary in my thinking. But I used to think like, I am going to hell. And I remember it wasn't just 11:34, it was also 1:34. It was also 11:35, because 11:34 I would say to myself, there's hell. And every time it just felt like that. I'm sure it wasn't the case, but every time I look at the clock, darn it, another 11:34. And then I would think to myself, I'm going to hell. And then the next number was 11:35, and I would reverse that in my mind, and it would say sell. And I would think, I'm going to hell because I sold my soul to the devil. And this was very real for me. This was an absolute literal thing. I believed I was going to go to hell. 1:34, same thing. It's just hell without the extra L. And same thing, 1:34, 1:35. I'd see it all the time. In fact, what just triggered this video was I looked at my clock and it said 11:34. And it does something to me, you guys. Like, maybe I'm just not far enough removed, or I need more time or therapy. I don't know. But bottom line is, even now, when I see 11:34, which I just did before this video, I think about that, my worthiness, and I think about, hell, and I think about these things. It has a hold on me. Not as much anymore, but it used to have a unbelievably powerful it took my power. It robbed me of my power. There's nothing worse than living every minute of every day thinking that your Maker or Jesus Christ is unpleased with you and ashamed of you, and that you're at odds and you can't hide. You can't hide. There is nothing worse than living with that kind of, the gravity of that guilt is so heavy. And it's, so what did I do on the mission? Knowing that I couldn't come home because I'd embarrassed my family and my family name, that I would have to go and refund all those people their money, of course, and that would also be embarrassing. So I just kept hiding it for 2 years, and I hustled for my worthiness. I worked really, really hard, and I was as honest and obedient and faithful as I possibly could have been. I mean, I was strict as I could have been. And it's interesting because as soon as I got off that mission, you know, the whole mission, I felt like I wasn't worthy of inspiration. I really did. I mean, I think I did a good job, but I always doubted myself. I always felt like these people don't realize that you know, if anybody ever thought I did a good job, if anybody ever thought I made a difference in their life, if anybody ever thought I was a good leader in any capacity, I just thought they don't realize that I'm not even worthy of the Spirit. I'm not even worthy to be doing this. And it was just, oh my gosh, guys, I wish I could impress upon you the gravity of that. I think it would be like the equivalent to some degree of like you're in a long-term relationship and you cheat on your spouse and you're hiding it, and you're just living with that guilt and knowing that you're hurting people and hurting someone dear to you. But it's even and it takes on even a whole nother level of gravity if it's your Maker or Jesus, who you've disappointed, who is constantly, all day, every day, unhappy with you and looking down, ashamed of you. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. When I got off that mission, one of the first things that I did was go and confess. You know, I got home and one of the very first things that I did was I went and confessed the lie. I went and fessed up to it because I couldn't live with it anymore. Not anymore. But it was the same thing all through my marriage to Crystal for, you know, about 14 years, first 14 years of our marriage. You know, I was hiding things from her. Well, one thing in particular, I was hiding from her. And I felt like I couldn't tell her because she told me that, you know, if she ever became aware of, you know, me looking at pornography, that she would divorce me. And so I had looked at pornography, and I just lied. And Crystal would look at me in the eyes and she would say, "Sean, have you ever done that?" And I would lie. And I tried really hard not to look at it. And I would go great spells without looking at it. But, you know, periodically I would indulge in that. And then my wife would, you know, I think, of course, that would have a negative impact on the marriage because I'm lying to her, and all that kind of energy is, you know, is probably very unhealthy. I know it's unhealthy. You know, you don't want to be out of integrity with your spouse. But it's the same thing. Our whole marriage, 14 years of marriage. Look at the clock, and what time is it? 11:34. And I would think about Yep, you know, I'm a liar. And I felt like I couldn't tell my leadership because I thought if I told the church leadership, they're probably going to talk to my wife and she'll leave me. She made it clear that she would leave me. So that was very heavy for me. So you're talking 2 years of a mission, but then on top of that, you're talking the first 14 years of our marriage. I'm living every day. I mean, I didn't look at pornography that often, but I'm living every single day with absolute guilt. And I just feel out of integrity. I feel like I'm a fake. I feel like I'm a phony. I feel like my wife deserves better. I'm not worthy of the Spirit. I'm not worthy of inspiration. Again, I think only people that grew up in a very strict religious background, that, you know, and even still, there's a lot of people that grow up in that kind of a environment, but they don't see things as binary as I did or as logical as I did. They're much more nuanced in their approach to commandments and so forth. I always believe that, you know, that like if you didn't keep one of the commandments, it was like just as bad as breaking all of them. Like, you know, because the scriptures would teach that God would not look on sin with the least degree of allowance. And then one of the scriptures would say, if you love me, keep my commandments. And so then I would be thinking, I don't even love God. Like, because I'm just so literal, like God doesn't believe that I love him, see? But what's interesting is all along, I'm just going to turn off these sprinklers. All along, I just felt out of sorts, out of odds, and I'm just coming to realize 2.5 years now I've been out of my religion. And I'm coming to realize that I never belonged in the religion. You know, there's a lot of religions out there, and I think religion serves a purpose for a lot of people, but I never fit. Even as an early teen, they would try to make me go, and I just didn't. It didn't suit me. It didn't fit with me. So yeah, still working on all of that. Still trying to figure out, like, still trying to feel like, you know, that. Well, no, not really. I mean, I don't believe anymore that I'm going to go to hell. I don't believe that. I don't believe in hell, but it stirs up those old past feelings is what it does. When I see 1134, every time, it reminds me of all the pain, all the suffering. You know, you're talking how many years? Poof, my gosh. 20 adult years of just daily living in pain, living with shame and guilt. And oftentimes people would say to me, they would say, we feel like you're holding back. I feel like you don't let people in. I feel like you don't allow people the opportunity to get to know the real you. And it's not a few people that said that. It was a lot of people. And I would think in the back of my mind, that's because the reason they sense that about me is because that's true. Is because I'm hiding. See? I'm hiding. Part of me doing this video is to show you and me, anyone that feels like I did, that you don't have to hide. That you're whole. That no matter what a religion, no matter what a parent, no matter what anyone said about you, that you're whole. My mom always talks about how unique we all are. She always talks about how In the whole world, there's nobody else like you. Even if you have an identical twin, even if you look almost exactly the same, even if people can't tell you apart, you know as that twin that you're unique, very much different from your twin. And all the people in the world, look at them all. Look at all the people that have ever walked this earth. And you're special. There's no two alike, exactly. That's the funny thing, is that it feels like my whole adult life, people have been complimenting me. People have been praising me. People have been believing in me and congratulating me, supporting me, mentoring me. And my entire life, I feel like I have been operating at a deficit. My entire life, I feel like, not that I'm a victim, not that I have it better than most, but my entire life, I feel like I've had chains around me. Chains just draped around my body. And I asked Jesus to forgive me. How many times did I ask Jesus to forgive me? And I never felt forgiven. Never. Not ever. And so I've just had to learn. That's not to say some people don't feel that, but I never felt that. Not my whole life. And I begged for it. And I fought for it. And I worked for it. And I believed. And I tried to believe so hard. But at some point, I had to just decide that wasn't for me. And that's okay. I'm a good person. I have good intentions. I'm loyal to my wife and to my family. I want to help people. I don't want to hurt people. I want to discover my unique gifts and talents. I want to have purpose and meaning in my life and do good. I want to live a simple life. That's ultimately what I want, is just to have a very simple, down-to-earth life where, we're free to just help and serve and bless others and be in a position where we can do a lot of good. That's always been my dream. And I just hope some of you can connect with this around the religious indoctrination. I know that for a couple years there, or at least 18 months, I was very volatile. I was very angry. I was lashing out. And I can see that now, and I actually can see what that was all about, and maybe even why that was okay and why that was necessary. But I don't want to do that anymore. I see now that time, that chapter has passed, and now I would rather build bridges. I would rather build bridges. I would rather find common ground. I would rather see the good and appreciate the good and hope for positive change. That's where I'm at now, 2.5 years removed from post-religion. But it's just crazy the depth, the DNA level depth of indoctrination and what it does to you. So, I would just ask that you offer people grace. there's not a better word for it. Grace. Whether you believe in Jesus or religion, grace, you know, cut people a break, because you just never know what they've been through. A lot of these people that leave religion, they go off the deep end. The pendulum swings. They go from one way of living, which is, you know, trying to be exact, trying to do everything right, that by the religious standards, trying to keep all those commandments, rules. And then the pendulum, when they leave that religion, the pendulum swings, and they do everything, they do everything the opposite of what they were taught. And for a lot of people, the reason that's the case is because they never got to live those college years. They never really got to live those crazy, carefree, invincible college and high school years where they partied and did all those things and got that out of their system. And so you actually see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even their 60s, and they're doing that really, really hardcore. And you just have to see that for what it is. They have to get that out of their systems. So give them some grace too. And I always operate now by the code, the moral code of, is it hurting anyone? Is it hurting anyone? And I think that's a good code to live by. Am I hurting anyone? And if how you're living or what you choose to do isn't hurting other people, then I think it can't be that bad. Another one is, does it glorify any other human? Does it glorify them? Because we're all just human, all of us. And that's part of a religious framework that I always had a hard time with, was the glorification of men. Because I know men are imperfect, and I'm aware of all the mistakes that men make. Look at our two politicians that are going for the presidency right now. You think they've made a little bit of mistakes or a lot of mistakes? Or can you even believe, like I can't even believe, that those are what we have to choose from? Because those two, I mean, you can't even glorify these guys. So everybody's like choosing the lesser of two evils, as they call it. But we don't need to go political. Bottom line is, does it glorify men? If it does, be aware. Be aware. Because men are fallible, very much so. And historically, men have done a lot of really rotten things when they have power and influence like that. That kind of power, that kind of influence. So be careful of that too. What was the other ground rule Crystal and I kind of made up? Is it hurting anyone? Does it glorify anyone? Does it take your money? And if it takes your money, what do you get for it? Stuff like that, you know. You've got to evolve to a state where you're a critical thinker and you can take a step back and objectively look at all things and decide for yourself. And wow, that's empowerment right there. That right there is empowerment. For me, I'm still working on believing that I'm, you know, worthy, if you will. Worthy of inspiration, worthy of my family, worthy of my income. And it's a hard thing for me. The whole self-worth thing is hard for me, and I'm working through it, and you know, trying to, you know, like my whole family is still Mormon. My whole family is all still Mormon, and I often wonder, what do they think of me? And I wish I didn't have those thoughts. Like, it feels like I'm in a prison. I wish I didn't think, I wonder what they think of me. I wonder if they think I'm a good person. I wonder if they think I have good intentions. All of that, you know, comes into play. And if you're like me, I really do care about my family. I care what my family thinks of me. It's all so heavy, guys. Anyway, I am a good person, and I'm not going to hell, because there is no hell. If there is a hell, it's reserved for the worst of the worst that truly intended on hurting people. But I don't believe there's a hell. And I don't believe I was born into this life flawed. I don't. Because for me, that doesn't make any sense. It never did. That I would be born into this earth flawed. Can't understand it, can't comprehend it. So, you know, from time to time I'll share my feelings around these things, and I hope you understand that my intent is to help people that suffered as much as I suffered every day. Every day. Every time I went to pray. And I was praying every day. Every time I went to pray, every day, I felt like I was bad, horrible, rotten, didn't deserve to have my prayers answered. I would beg God to help me. Take it away, God. Take it away. And it was never taken. And I know all of the religious people have their reasoning for that. It's probably because I wasn't in the right faith, or I didn't have enough faith, or didn't understand grace. You know, I know all of that, but it's just my experience is that since leaving religion, oh my gosh, you have no idea what it's done for me. My self-worth, my value, how I treat other people, how I look at other people, how I'm tolerant of other people, the good I see in the world versus, you know, before always thinking that there was only one way, there was only one path, it's just so different. And so I share, you know, Crystal and I share this stuff because we know there's people out there that are suffering, and there's people out there that are hurting. And I hope I didn't put 1134 in your head to where it triggers you, because that would never be my intention. You probably have your own triggers, don't you? And one day, God, one day I hope we overcome these triggers, because it's not right, it's not fair. I love you, and I hope you know that you're whole.